Over the years, some of Paul's writings have been extremely debated and taken out of context. In order to justify judgmental attitudes, I'd like for you to approach this short study. From this perspective, different people have different customs. I have visited other countries where customs in many ways vary from the customs in my own country. Some customs cause no problems, others do and in care, especially during the time of Paul's ministry when you try to mix different customs into the same church, it can cause division. And as Paul says, in another place, God is not the author of confusion. We are touching on a complex and often debated passage in 1 Corinthians 11:2-16, where Paul discusses head coverings and hair lengths in worship. Let's break down the likely issues Paul was addressing, the cultural context, and why these instructions may not have been universally applied to all churches. The cultural context in Corinth. Paul's instructions were likely addressing specific cultural and religious practices in Corinth, a Greco-Roman city with mixed Jewish and pagan influences. Here's what may have been happening. Gender distinction in worship. Corinth was a cosmopolitan city where Roman, Greek, and Eastern religious practices mixed. Some pagan rituals, like those involving the goddess Isis or Dionysus, had gender-fluid practices, including men with long, unbound hair or women with uncovered hair as a sign of ecstatic prophecy. Paul may have been reinforcing a distinction between Christian worship and pagan worship, propriety in church gatherings. In Roman society, respectable women typically wore head coverings, like veils or draped garments, in public, while uncovered hair could be associated with immodesty, e.g. prostitutes or pagan priestesses. For men, excessively long hair could be seen as effeminate or associated with certain pagan cults, like Dionysian followers. Disorderly worship. Some women in Corinth, emboldened by new Christian freedom, may have been removing head coverings during prayer prophecy, causing controversy. Paul's concern was likely about maintaining order and avoiding offense in that cultural setting, ef 1 Corinthians 14:40. Why these rules didn't apply universally cultural, not theological. Paul's instructions were situational, not a timeless moral law. He appeals to nature, 1 Corinthians 11:14, and custom, 1 Corinthians 11:16, suggesting this was about cultural appropriateness, not divine mandate. No direct teaching from Jesus, as you may note. Jesus never addressed head coverings or hair length. Paul was applying general principles, modesty, order, gender distinction to a specific context. Different churches, different norms. Early churches varied in practice. For example, in some Jewish Christian communities, head coverings for women may have been standard, while Gentile churches had different customs. The hair length question. Jewish versus Greco-Roman norms. Jewish men typically kept shorter hair. Levenier 1927 forbids rounded pagan haircuts, while Roman men generally wore it short. Long hair on men could be associated with Nazirites, Numbers 6 and 5, a vow of consecration like Samson. So are pagan priests, e.g. Dionysus worshippers. Jesus' hair length unknown. The Bible doesn't describe Jesus' hair, but as a Jewish man, he likely kept it moderately short, contrary to medieval European depictions. The idea of Jesus with long hair comes much later in art, not scripture. Why it's confusing today. Cultural distance. Modern Westerners don't associate hair length or head coverings with worship propriety, making Paul's reasoning seem obscure. Paul's appeal to nature, 1 Corinthians 11:14. This likely refers to cultural norms of his day, not biology. In many ancient societies, long hair on men was seen as unnatural or disgraceful. E.g., Roman writers criticized effeminate men with long hair. Principle versus practice. The underlying principle was avoiding unnecessary offense and maintaining orderly worship, 1 Corinthians 10:32. The specific practice, coverings hair length, was culturally bound. Conclusion. Paul was addressing a Corinthian-specific issue where hair and head coverings carried cultural and religious significance. His goal was to maintain order, distinguish Christian worship from paganism, and uphold gender distinctions in a way that honored local norms. Since these were situational instructions, not tied to Jesus' teachings, they weren't enforced uniformly across all churches. Today, the principle might apply, e.g., dressing modestly in worship, but the specific practice of head coverings or hair length is not a universal command.